The Colombian Woman. 2 or 3 months later, I found myself in Cuernavaca, Mexico, not far from Mexico City, giving another Earth Sky workshop. A little over 100 people were present, and about 20 of them happened to be from Colombia. One of these Colombians, a woman in her early 40s, seemed like any other modern woman, until our group would perform a ceremony, a dance, or a chant that was real, meaning something that made the people aware of the presence of God. At that point, her personality would change completely. She became uninhibited and primitive. She would dance with the movements, abandon an intensity of one who had given herself over to the chanting and music, not something you would expect from a modern woman. To me, it was beautiful to watch her, but the other Colombians were embarrassed by her actions. As this woman continued with her unusual mannerisms every single day of the 4-day workshop, the others in the group became more and more impatient with her. On the 3rd day, the group was in a large circle holding hands and chanting certain sounds to heighten awareness. In her unusual nature, this woman broke the circle and went into the center, wildly dancing to the chanting. After about 15 minutes, the Colombians couldn't stand it anymore and motioned for me to stop her. I didn't really want to, because her movements were so beautiful to me. However, out of respect for the others, I entered the center of the circle to take her back to the group. As I approached her, she was facing away from me. I lightly touched her on the shoulder. She spun around. She looked past my eyes into my soul, and her body emitted this strange sound that seemed to surround my body. Instantly, I was no longer in a room in Cuernavaca. I was in a foreign place with grass huts and people standing around me, white clothing, looking at me. It was as real as reality. A dog even ran by. I was not in my own body anymore, but in a female body watching the surroundings. A strange, unknown feeling surged through me that felt almost sexual, yet wasn't. Let's just say it felt really, really good. And then, just as I was beginning to accept my new reality, I suddenly found myself back in the room in Cuernavaca, looking into the eyes of this very strange woman. I had never had an experience like that before, and I've had some pretty unusual experiences. At that moment, all I knew was that I wanted to feel that way again. So entirely giving up my place as leader of the group and in the middle of the chanting, I took the woman by the hand and leaded for a coma in the huge room. I sat her down, looked into her open brown eyes and said, "Please do that again." The woman smiled and made the sound again. And once more, I was no longer in Cuernavaca, Mexico. I was in Colombia. For 2 hours, according to the people in the group who had stopped chanting and were watching, I was in an altered state of consciousness. In the short time I spent with her, I learned and understood what was really going on. It became so clear to me. Actually, 2 old Kogi mamas explained it to me while I was in this female body in Colombia. They said, "We traveled down the mountain to another tribe nearby, to a woman in that tribe who has special abilities. We asked if she would help us reach you, and she agreed. Apparently, the woman, whose name was Emma, laid down on a bed made of thick grass in a round grass hut. Her spirit left her body and traveled farther down the mountain to the bottom where a Colombian woman was living in an old Spanish adobe house. Emma entered this woman's body. I don't know if she had permission to do so, and put the idea into her mind to go to my workshop in Mexico so that she, Emma, could teach me the language that has no words. What is even more interesting is that the Colombian woman had no money, no passport or visa, no birth certificate, or any other manner to prove her identity, and no airline ticket. Yet she managed to find her way to Mexico to come to the workshop. Someone bought her an airline ticket, and before I left the US, the angels had told me to give her a free workshop. But still, how did she get through customs without any identification? How did she manage to travel from Colombia to Mexico and back again by air with no complications? I guess they just couldn't see her. What I was learning from Emma with her strange sounds in the corner of the room was far more than just how the Kogi mamas did this spatial transformation with me. With my newly found abilities, I was walking around in the real world on Kogi land in a female body with old mama shamans all around me. I knew that they knew it was me in this body. And one by one, these shamans would come up very close to my face and make strange sounds. Each time a sound was made, I would immediately disappear into yet another reality where they began to teach me about their history, culture, and spiritual beliefs. By the time this very real experience was over, I knew everything about this woman whose body I was using. I knew her husband and 3 children as though they were mine. 2 old mamas were by my side throughout the whole experience, and I came to know them like they were family. One of them was Mamos Bernardo, and he became my guide over the next few months. I felt like I had just been reborn into a new, incredible world where all the old rules had been thrown out. My old, familiar world seemed more like a dream than reality, whereas this new world was real. My session with Emma ended as suddenly as it had begun, and I was back in my own body in Mexico, giving a workshop about something that at that time I thought was totally unrelated. Slowly, over the next few weeks, I began to understand my new experience and began to accept the way the Kogi mamas were teaching me so gracefully. I learned that the sounds came not from the mind, but by thinking and words, but from the heart, from a sacred space within the heart. They were directed by dreaming and feelings and emotions. Both mind and heart produce images in the body, but only the heart creates images that seem completely real. Here was definitely a means of communication that went far beyond anything the mind was capable of. I had just experienced the language that has no words, and I was never going to be the same again. I felt simultaneously honored and excited about the possibilities. The language with no words could also be used as communication between all life forms, not just between humans. The Kogi mamas told me to try communicating in this manner with animals so I could see this truth for myself.